Welcome back to another TerranScapes video. This video is going to be, hopefully, really short, but I wanted to show some modifications to a project that's underway for Martian board set. The customer has requested flocking on it to give it more of a lush alien feel, and there's been some discussion about adding potentially some alien plants to a couple of key spots. So what I thought I would do is give you a look at the flock that I've chosen, a couple new texture features that I've added to a couple of the plain boards, and some of the plants that I've developed, and that way the customer can give me a little positive feedback before I, or negative feedback, before I complete the set and get it ready for the final video. So let's take a closer look at these changes and give you a sense of where I've been going. So here you can see a slight close-up of the boards. Now what I did for the flock is I made a custom blend going against the red soil. You know, I wanted something that would make the red, you know, contrast well and still preserve, you know, a more of a semi-realistic look. You know, the customer had mentioned that he wants it to look a little foreign, but he didn't want, you know, like purple grass, you know, for example. He didn't want something really far out. So what I did is I mixed in a blend of a very dark fine turf green with a bit of a conifer color, which is sort of almost like a charcoal gray green, and then mixed it in with some of a swampy bog blend from Scenic Express, which has some blues in it, a little bit of reds, and it's just got a little variety of texture. And I actually had to grind the swampy bog down to reduce its texture because it really is a very chunky composition, and I didn't want it to be flaking off or to look, you know, really chunky on the actual flat surfaces. So this gives you a sense, a little bit of a pullback of how it looks at a distance. And we can take a closer look at the board and give you a sense of what it looks like up close. I mixed probably 3 different batches of colors and, you know, sort of sprinkled them onto the board to take a look at it to see. And I found that having a really bright green didn't quite work for this red soil, but this darker green, and especially with a little bit of that charcoal gray green cut into it, really, I think, I don't know. Me personally, I love this color, and I probably will make it some kind of a standard option in the store as well. And let's see if we can get up close, and maybe you can see now, of course, color rendering, although these lights have been doing pretty well. But you can see, you know, there are some, you know, tiny little red spots, a variety of shades of green. There's even a little static hair in that swampy bog blend. It's a very interesting blend, but on its own, it's not quite right. So really blending it down, I think, literally and figuratively, you know, really helped to bring that tone to something that really works well on these red boards. Then what I did on 2 boards, this is a little experiment. Because this is the Martian set, it's going to get buttes on top of it, so I don't want to affect the flat areas too much on the plain boards so that there's optimal, you know, ability to place these where you want. And I don't want to create surface features that are going to make miniatures tippy. Mr. Tippy McLean would praise me for that. But what I did is I just built up a couple areas. I've seen a lot of boards lately, a lot of manufacturers, custom designers, whatnot, that are incorporating a lot more texture into the surface of the board. And by texture, I mean, you know, undulations, surface features that break up these large flat areas a little bit more visually. And again, you know me, I always try to be kind of conservative on my first attempts. So you can see that that actually isn't, you can actually see that profile. It's not very high, and I wanted to see how it painted up. And also, like I said, keep it at a level where it's not going to affect, you know, movement of miniatures. And while they are subtle on the board, they do add something to it. I do think so, and it's going to be something I'll probably be exploring a bit heavier in future iterations. But I did 2 of those just as a free add-in to add a little bit of variation for the customer. And then I tried something, you know, a little bit more dramatic, actually. And I've seen a bunch of people doing cracked earth on their boards. So because this is a bit of a desert, you know, if you will, of sort of lush desert, if you will, I decided that that might not look out appropriate here. As I tend to not want to go, you know, for a really fantasy look. I didn't want this to look like chaos broken earth, you know, that's not the look I was going for. So what I did is I scored in the lines using the Hot Wire Foam Factory engraving tool. I believe that's what I used. And then, you know, applied some texture with some rocks to the surface of those broken plates. And then when I coated it, I only applied the foam coat to these areas and didn't add any of the sand, you know, that gives the typical texture for the surfaces. As I didn't want this to look sandy, I wanted it to look more like maybe some stone, you know, bedrock has been exposed and it has this broken appearance. This is a challenge both for this piece as well as for the surface rises, is that because I coat the boards with foam coat, I can't put in very subtle textures and expect them to be preserved when I apply the foam coat, because it is a rather thick coating and it sinks into the cracks. And in fact, when I coated this, I had to brush this out quite aggressively to re-expose the texture. So it's not something that you can just, you know, I can't just put in tiny undulations because it'll fill them. If I put in tiny cracks, it will fill them. So I wanted something that would be visible through the foam coat, that would add just a little pop, and I did 2 boards like this as well. Dry brushed them up a little brighter, and I think they add a lot, actually, and I really liked how they came out. Now, should the customer, this is to the customer, should these not be to your liking, I could easily cover these with flock and you know, either totally obscure them or mute that effect quite a bit. So if you're not happy with that, that's not a problem. That's easy to change. Let's take a look at some of the more interesting possible additions for this set now. The Martian board sets, typically what I do to apply foliage, because I don't apply them to the plain boards because of storage issues, although that could be done on request, you know, and then I could pack them with more foam and protect it. But typically I apply some around the buttes, and I apply some along the riverbanks of the carved channel that this board set is normally built with. Now, I wanted to develop some kind of plants that would fit in these kinds of nooks and crannies, and then add in some traditional foliage around them to tie them into this, you know, flocked look. So I don't want to just have plastic plants everywhere, but I wanted to develop something that would be small enough that I could stick in 1 plant, 2 plants, and a couple clumps of foliage around. So that's the intention with these developments. So what I've done is I actually, and maybe we'll zoom in on these. I went to the craft store yet once again and purchased some more plants with alien plants in mind. And I also realized I have a store of palm trees that I could cannibalize for some unique looks that I haven't used to date. You know, I was thinking someday down the road, somebody's going to want some palm trees. I picked some up on eBay cheap, but they provide an excellent opportunity to develop some really unique styles of plants a little bit more easily. It's, I'm just going to scroll through here. You'll hang in with me on that. So, what I did is basically, you know, with some careful cutting and some gluing, I've assembled a variety of small plants that, you know, whoop, there we go, will fit on that kind of an area. And I wanted to keep them small, and I wanted to keep the scale, you know, small as well, as I think that really makes it look a little bit more believable. Here's the heretofore referenced Mr. Tippy McLean for a little scale comparison on how big these plants are. Got a couple dried flower pods to make, you know, sort of a tendril-bottomed, you know, who knows, carnivorous plant. I took some these berries off of another plant, and I gave them a paint job with a little transparent red from Createx, which is kind of nice. I coated that a little heavily, so it's a pretty strong color. This is a palm base, and then attached another plant to it. And I gave this a little bit of a blue wash with the Createx, and I don't know, it actually, in this light, well, at least through the camera lens, it doesn't look that strong, but it might show up a little bit stronger. It does show quite a bit of a different green color than, say, some of these petals here, because I wanted a little green contrast, maybe something pushing towards blue and a little bit more alien. another palm tree based tree with different sort of petals, and then here I actually built a rosette. The customer sent me a photo showing an area that was really quite dense in grasses and like an aloe plant, rosette type plant. Now, it's a little hard for me to create that because they have sort of spiny leaves. This might be something a little closer, with this is actually a palm top, right? And then, but look at the nice little cuts on those. Isn't that great? I tried dry brushing these. Actually, this plant I did dry brush. It shows a little bit lighter green on the fringes, but it's a lot of work for not a big, strong appearance, so I probably won't pursue that. Anyway, I took another plant, and then I used some flower, what is it called? Flower Soft, I think. Yeah, Flower Soft. Whoop. Flower Soft, real quick description. Somebody pointed this out to me quite a while back in another video. It's basically a ground up foam that is used on card making, for instance, to give some texture and color to different areas. And it makes a very nice flower when added to the tops of other kinds of, let's see if we can get that to focus. There we go. It's got a couple little colors in it. The texture is really nice. So I thought I'd create a little bit of a different plant here and just sort of experiment. Not 100% sold on it. Could be modified, but it was, let's just throw out some ideas and let's just brainstorm and see how they come out. So my thought, again, is to pull back here a little bit, is to, perhaps have something like this sticking on the side, and then add some of the normal clump foliage around it to tie it in. So it's sort of like a focus point that pops rather than, this whole assortment all crowded together along the way. That's not what I'm looking for. This isn't a jungle setting. So it's something to consider if the customer's interested in that. I'm happy to put a few of these on. And it's really given me a huge boost to want to do some jungle terrain because I have probably 20 or so varieties of plastic plants now, and cobbling them together like this creates some really interesting shapes and varieties. It is a little time consuming, so there's going to be a cost associated with that for jungle terrain, but I think you're going to get something that's really spectacular. So checking the counter on the camera, I see I've already gone longer than I planned, so I'm going to wrap this up real quick. And like I said, this is a check-in for the customer, but keep your eye on the channel. Once the set is complete, I'll lay it all out. You can see the entire set all done with the water features, dried mud. There's a few other features obviously that aren't shown here, and whatever we decide on for plants, of course, will be added at that time. So thank you for joining me. Keep your eye on the channel. I've got a couple more videos I want to shoot later today, so there should be some new updates on the channel over the next couple days. And please feel free to leave comments and questions down below. Always happy to answer those. Trying to answer almost all of the comments that I get, but I am starting to scroll back on a few that are not necessarily question oriented, just so that I can keep up with them. So hopefully you understand, and thank you once again for joining me. Being repetitive, so I'll let you go.